Welcome to EJH British Cars. Another kind of rainy day in California, though it's supposed to get a little bit better this afternoon, so I'm hoping we can get a little time in on the car because I have a new toy to play with. Well, I'm sure many of you remember that I recently bought this Spot Welder from Harbor Freight, and it comes stock with these relatively short arms. These are about 6 inches and they have about a 2-inch offset. I was on the Jungle website the other day and I found these long reach arms for my spot welder. They're from Tips and Tongs, and they have about a 16-inch reach on this deep reach one, and it's about a 4-inch offset, plus you'll pick up another almost an inch with the tip in place. The lower electrode is just straight. It doesn't have that deep offset, and it's only about 1.5 inches or so of offset. Whereas the standard tongs, there's about 6 inches here, and I believe it's about 2 inches from the curve to the point. So I thought I might just show you how to install these, and then hopefully if the weather gets a little bit brighter, we'll be able to give them a whirl on the TR2. So the arms are held in with these 4 Allen bolts. There's 4 up here, and then there's 4 on the bottom. They're metric. This is a 5mm Allen wrench. So you just need to back these off about a turn each. Quite lined up. So there's the first one loosened up. And then that just pulls out of there. And you see it's just it looks like it's pretty much just solid copper. And then we need to do the same thing on the bottom. So these are a little easier to get at because you don't have to get around the handle. But they just undo like that. And that one just comes out, and I think these are identical. The lower one is about 1/2 inch longer. So these end pieces seem to come in 2 styles. One is what comes with the normal Harbor Freight one, which are 8mm by 1.25 thread, which is a coarse thread. These are the Miller style, which I think are 3/8, well, there might be 3/8 24. Anyway, so they just install like that. Just run them in, and you should take a wrench, and you just want to snug them. You don't want to like really reef these things down because they're going to go through a lot of heat cycle, and if you're not careful, you're going to wind up with something you can't get undone. And if you'll notice, this is the one we're going to use in the upper, and this is at an angle, and whereas this one's just straight. So this one is used in the lower, this is the upper. So feed this in, just like that. And we'll snug it up just a little bit. We're going to need to align these here in a minute, so I don't want to do these too tight, but I don't want it flopping around either. We'll just run those in so they touch. Well, this is interesting. The upper electrode had a shim around it from the factory. And when I measured it out, the bore is about 15 thousandths bigger than the stock. I checked these 2 bars. They're within 2 thousandths of each other, the new bars and the old bars. So, and the bottom one doesn't have this. So I got to think that was a mistake of the factory that they bored these holes out slightly the wrong size. So there we go. There's the tips lined up because there's a fair amount of wiggle in these, so they're never going to be perfect all the time, but they got to be close. And you can see how that's put that at an angle, so we have to adjust this bolt as well. And that's about at the end, and it doesn't quite pull down as hard as it did before, but and this handle usually closed a little bit further than that. But as you can see, that nut is against the edge of those pieces. So short of taking this apart and filing it off a little bit, and I'm not going to be doing a ton of welding like this, so I think this will be fine. It's time for lunch, so I'm going to go do that, and it's raining again. hopefully the weather will be a little better after lunch and we can get something done. Well, it finally stopped raining and I got my new tongs into my spot welder. So today's the day we're going to see if we can't spot weld the dog leg to the inner fender. So as you can see, it's in place, and I put in bolts into all the fender attachment screws to pull the two edges together because they have to be touching to be able to spot weld. And I also found this is another Harbor Freight tool. This is a little belt sander, air driven. And I've been using that to clean the back of the flange because it'll reach in through the body. And it works way better than trying to use a cupped wire brush because there's almost no space back there. This is the kind of welding where you really notice how heavy this thing is, and it's a lot more awkward now that these long extensions are on. So we have to put it with the one with the big jog on this side because we're feeding in through holes through the inner panel to get to the outer panel. Put that on, clamp tight. You can see it's working. You can see the smoke coming off. That's because there's still a little bit of primer around the edges of this thing. And there you can see a couple of spot welds. I think I did that last one a little bit on the long side. That's all right. So, got to do it up and down along that edge. Not very exciting to watch, but I thought I'd let you see it. You can see here I also cleaned off the paint off of this side, and this is how we're getting access through these holes were from the factory. That's the back of the seam right there. So there we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 spot welds. The only places I couldn't get right back here because there's no body access, and just at the bottom here because the same reason that all this is in the way. And the jog in this is far wider than this distance, so they can't get it in behind those web pieces. So as soon as I had the spot welder out, I decided to put my little piece of floor in here. This is the back of the floorboard, and the floor goes underneath, so I didn't weld the very ends, not to slide the floor under. But it worked pretty good. But I gotta tell you, that spot welder gets heavy really fast, and I wound up picking the lift up so I could put the back of the spot welder on my shoulder. That's just crazy. And the other thing, you really want to make these pieces of metal, one is, the two that are going to weld together, get them as close as possible, if not touching, because trying to clamp them with those long jaws, you've lost a lot of mechanical advantage, and it's up on your shoulder and blah blah blah. So the more time you get fitting for a nice square edge on your flange, the better off you're going to be. Well, I hope you enjoyed all that. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and share, and we'll see you next time.